Good afternoon, children.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Hope you are remembering the points that we discussed last class. We learned about cell wall and we learned that plant cells can resist changes in, or they can resist a dilute solution better than that of animal cell. Can you give me the reason for that? I'll repeat it once again. Plant cells can resist or withstand dilute solutions much better than animal cells. What is the reason, Tom?
Cells get water by the osmosis and they swell up and
they swell up. They swell up
and give pressure against the cell wall.
Okay, then.
And the cell wall gives equal pressure against the swollen cell.
Okay. So it will be balanced and they'll be able to resist the changes, or they'll be able to withstand dilute medium better than that of animal cells. With what is the cell wall made of, Abhiram? With what is the cell wall made of?
Cellulose.
Very good. Okay, we'll continue. Now we are going to learn about an important process which you call as plasmolysis. Lysis means splitting, breaking. Plasmolysis. So here you can see the picture of a cell, a normal cell or a plant cell. And when it is placed in a very concentrated solution, when plant cell is placed in concentrated solution, what will happen, children? What will happen to the cell? Yes. Cell will shrink. They will lose water, or the cell will lose water by osmosis and the cell will shrink. And once the cell is shrinking, so here in this picture you can see picture A. In picture A, it is a normal cell. A normal cell you can find here. Okay. This is a normal cell. And in this normal cell, when this normal cell is placed in a concentrated solution, you can see the cell is losing water and it is starting to shrink. So here you can see it is slowly shrinking. And here again, you will find that the cell wall is remaining intact. No change in cell wall. But the plasma membrane and the other contents are slowly shrinking. You can see it is shrunken here. Here it has just started. And here you can see it is completely shrunken. But the cell wall will remain intact. The plasma membrane along with the cell contents will shrink and it will move away from the cell wall. And this process is known as plasmolysis. I'll repeat once again. When a plant cell, when a living plant cell is placed in concentrated solution, it will lose water by means of osmosis. And when it is losing water, the cell contents will shrink and move away from the cell wall. Cell wall is very rigid. It will remain as such. But the rest of the contents will be shrinking and moving away from the cell wall. And this process is known as plasmolysis. I'll repeat again. When a living plant cell loses water, or when it is placed in a concentrated solution, it will lose water by osmosis and the contents of the cell will shrink and it will move away from Lakshmi? It will be moving away from what? The contents of the cell along with the plasma membrane. It will move away from Lakshmi CV.
Yes, ma'am.
It will move away. The contents of the cell will move away from cell wall. And this process is known as plasmolysis. I'll repeat again. When living plant cell loses water through osmosis, the contents of the cell will shrink or contract and move away from the cell wall. This process is known as plasmolysis. Okay. Now we are moving on to the next topic. That is, before I say the name, let me see whether you can guess it. This is a control center of the cell. It regulates all the activities taking place in the cell.
Nucleus.
Exactly. Nucleus. And when we learned about plasma membrane and cell wall, we saw some comparisons. Plasma membrane was compared to Plasma membrane was compared to
Security.
Lakshmi, can you repeat again?
Ma'am, security.
Security guard we compared with cell wall. Gatekeeper. Plasma membrane to gatekeeper, cell wall to security guard, and nucleus, the control center of the cell. All the activities taking place in the cell are regulated by the control center, that is nucleus. So nucleus present in the cell will regulate all the activities of the cell. And here, with what you can compare? With whom you can compare nucleus? Huh? Yes. Adigesh, repeat. You said, okay, chairman. Okay, let's see. So here you can see the comparison. Nucleus is the control center of the cell. It regulates all the activities taking place in the cell. Gives instructions to the members of the teaching and non-teaching staff and helps in the smooth functioning of the school. So same way in a cell, nucleus regulates all the activities taking place. So let's learn more about nucleus. Nucleus, as I already told you, it's a control center of the cell. See children, here in the text, here in the picture, what you're seeing is just the nucleus, enlarged nucleus. I've not shown the cell over there, just nucleus. Okay, don't misunderstand it for cell. Only nucleus. Only nucleus is displayed over here. Nucleus is the control center of the cell. It is covered by a double layered membrane. You can see the membrane is double layered and you call this membrane as nuclear membrane. The membrane is known as nuclear membrane. Yes, once again, nucleus is the control center of the cell. It regulates all the activities taking place in the cell and it is covered by a double layered membrane which you call as nuclear membrane. Now, in the nuclear membrane, it is not continuous. See here you can see an opening, here there is an opening, here an opening. So scattered along the nuclear membrane, you can see certain pores or openings. Why are these openings present? You know it is nucleus. And outside the nucleus, what is present, children? Huh? Outside the nucleus, what is present? Yes, cytoplasm is present outside. So these pores will help in the exchange of materials between the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So this is cytoplasm, here it is nucleus. So through these pores, materials can move in and out. These pores, nuclear pores, will help in the transfer or exchange of materials between the nucleus and cytoplasm. Once again, nucleus is the control center of the cell. It regulates all the activities taking place in the cell. It's covered by a double layered membrane, which you call as nuclear membrane. And the nuclear membrane has got pores, small pores are there. We call it as nuclear pores. It will help in transferring materials between the nucleus and the cytoplasm. Any doubts? Advait?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Adigesh?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Isha, Fatima, any doubts? Isha? What happened to Isha? No response? Now here.
No, ma'am.
Yes, chromosome.
Ma'am, my Zoom sometimes it doesn't
Okay, no
respond.
problem, Isha. See, where do you find chromosome, children? Where do you find chromosome?
The nucleus.
Inside the nucleus. So let's see more about chromosome. Nucleus contains chromosomes. See in that picture, you can find so many thread-like structures. Several thread-like structures are found inside the nucleus. See, so many thread-like structures you can find, and you call it as chromatin fibers, which will later become chromosomes. When they are in the form of a thread-like structure, you call it as chromatin fibers. Later, when the cell is about to divide, they change into chromosomes. Okay. So in the beginning, they'll be like a mass of threads, but later they will become short and thick and they form what you call as chromosomes. Chromatin fibers will change into chromosomes when the cell is about to divide. Okay, nucleus contains chromosomes. And what is the function of these chromosomes? They carry information. They carry information for the inheritance of characters. From where to where? From parents to offspring in the form of certain molecules which you call as DNA. So they will be carrying genetic information or information for the inheritance of characters. I've given it in pink color, note it down. They carry information for the inheritance of characters from parents to offspring in the form of DNA molecules. This information is stored in the form of DNA molecules. Expansion of DNA. Yes, deoxyribonucleic acid. We'll see about DNA later. So deoxyribonucleic acid. So in the nucleus, you can find some thread-like structures. When is it in the thread form, you call it as chromatin fiber. But later, when the cell is about to divide, they'll become short and thick. So here in the figure below the cell, the picture of cell is shown over there. Just below you can see chromosome and chromatin fiber. When they are in the form of a thread, you call it as chromatin fiber. And when they condense, you call it as chromosome. So this is chromatin fiber, chromosome. Once again, nucleus contains chromosomes. They carry information for what? For the inheritance of characters from parents to offsprings in the form of DNA molecules. It is because of these chromosomes that we are resembling our parents. You have so many features of your parents. Some features of your mother, some features of your father, and your siblings are also similar, or there'll be some features in common. That is why teachers are able to identify. When we go to some class, we ask them, like, you have a brother in so and so class. It is because of these similarities. And who is responsible, or which structure is responsible for these similarities? Chromosomes, or the genes present on chromosomes. You'll be learning about genes. Okay, nucleus contains chromosomes. Function of chromosomes: they carry information for the inheritance of characters from parents to offsprings. And since chromosomes are storing the information, you can compare it to a school website. What is there in the school website? All necessary information, all important information about the school will be stored in the school website. Am I right? So similarly, chromosomes also store all the necessary information. So chromosome can be compared to the school website. So from the beginning, from plasma membrane, we had been comparing with a counterpart therein in our school. So this can be, the chromosome can be compared to school website. Chromosomes are made up of, or they are composed of DNA and proteins. With what are chromosomes made of? Chromosomes are made of DNA and proteins. And now you might be thinking, why we didn't learn about genes, where it has to be mentioned. Now here you can see a small piece of chromosome is enlarged. So I said this is, just a minute. This is a cell. Inside the cell, inside the nucleus, you can find chromosomes. A small portion of the chromosome, it is enlarged and shown. You can see it is made up of DNA and proteins. And a small piece of this DNA, you can call as gene. A piece of or a segment of DNA. This is another gene. Okay. The functional segments of DNA are called genes. Where do you find DNA? Chromosomes are made of DNA and proteins. And a small segment of DNA you can call as genes. And where are chromosomes found? Where are chromosomes found?
In
the nucleus. Where is nucleus found?
Inside
the cell. And chromosomes are made of
DNA and protein.
DNA and proteins. And a segment of DNA is known as gene. Once again, gene is a segment of DNA. Where are DNA molecules found? They make up chromosome. Where are chromosomes found? Inside the nucleus. And nucleus is present in the cell. And where are cells present? All living organisms are made up of cells. Based on the number of cells, we have two groups of organisms, unicellular and multicellular organisms. Now more about chromosome. When a cell is not dividing, already I told you this, the nuclear material will be seen as mass of thread. Entangled mass of thread means you can see it is fully mixed up. It's entangled mass of, it's not like a straight thread. It's entangled, mixed up, curled and twisted. So you can see an entangled mass of thread-like structure known as chromatin material. But when the cell is about to divide, this chromatin material will condense or will organize and form rod-shaped structures, which you call as chromosomes. So in a cell which is not undergoing division, the chromosomes will be in the form of thread, a mass of thread, or a entangled mass of thread-like structures. But when the cell is about to divide, the chromatin material will condense, will become thick and form what you call as chromosomes. And made of DNA and proteins. And a small piece of DNA or functional segment of DNA you call as gene. Chromosomes carry genes. And function of chromosomes, what is the function of a chromosome? They carry
information.
they carry genes, and also what else they carry?
It carries
Information
for inheritance.
for the inheritance of characters from parents to offsprings in the form of
DNA molecule.
DNA molecules. Offsprings means children, the young ones. Okay, before we learn about the functions of nucleus,
Can you show the last thing?
You show the slide.
last slide, I'll show it again. Let me quickly recap, and then 55 is the time now, children, for the class to wind up. Yes, okay. So let's have a quick recap. I'll show you the slide, not to worry. Okay, Lakshmi, tell me about nucleus. 1 point.
The nucleus. Nucleus is the control center of a cell.
Nucleus is the control center of the cell. Next point, Lynette.
Nucleus has a double-layered covering called nuclear membrane.
Very good. What else we learned, Nandana?
And the nuclear membrane has pores which helps in transfer of materials from
between cytoplasm and nucleus. I could see many of you have turned the videos off. I'll post the names in the group, children. Sorry to say. Tamanna, Surya. Yes. Now, Pooja, what was the next point that we discussed?
And nucleus contains chromosomes.
Nucleus contains chromosomes. Isha?
Yes, ma'am.
Next point. Nucleus contains chromosomes. Now tell me about the composition of chromosomes? They are made up of?
DNA and proteins.
They are made up of DNA and proteins. Tamanna, Nivedya, Suryadev, you want attendance, child? Nivedya? Tamanna, if you have audio problem, how did you understand I called out your name? You have given me, send me a message. If you can't hear, how can you send me that message, child? Nivedya?
Yes, ma'am.
Next point.
Ma'am, the chromosomes carry information and
Chromosomes carry?
gene.
Okay. They carry information for the inheritance of characters. From whom to whom?
the parent to the
From parents to offsprings in the form of
DNA molecule.
DNA molecules. What is the expansion for DNA? Nikhila, what is the expansion for DNA? Nikhila, where did you go? Advait, expand DNA. Unmute. Advait Murali, unmute and say. What happened, Advait? Sridev?
Deoxyribonucleic acid.
Deoxyribonucleic acid. Advait, what had happened? Repeat. Repeat the point. Deoxyribonucleic acid. Then what else we learned, Lakshmi Nanda? What else we learned?
And the function, it is composed of DNA molecules, and functional segments of DNA are called genes.
Functional segments of DNA, or a functional segment of DNA is known as gene. Any doubt? Vaishnavi, what are genes? What are genes?
Genes are functional segments
Functional segments of DNA. See, some of you wanted to see those points, no? So quickly I will show you a recap, and I have to take the attendance also. Just quickly we'll see. Functions of nucleus, next class we will learn. So the points that we learned today, I will just quickly show them. Nucleus is the control center of the cell. It's covered by double-layered membrane, which you call as nuclear membrane. And the nuclear membrane is provided with certain pores, which helps in the exchange of materials between the nucleus and cytoplasm. And nucleus contains chromosomes, which carry information for the inheritance of characters from parents to offsprings in the form of DNA molecules. Then we learned chromosomes are made up of DNA and proteins. DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. Functional segments of DNA you call as genes. Then we learned that when a cell is not dividing, chromosomes won't be seen. Instead, you can see the nuclear material in the form of an entangled mass of threads. You call it as chromatin material or chromatin fibers. And these fibers will change into chromosomes, rod-shaped structures known as chromosomes, when the cell is about to divide. Okay. Okay, carry on. I'll take the attendance. I'll call out your names. Adigesh is present. Abhiram is present. Adelio, I saw him joining. Advait Murali present. Advait Sinu present. Ehsan is there. Ehsan, Albert, Alan, Alvin. Who is present?
Alan.
Okay. Alan, I saw you joining as Alan 11A. 9A, you made it ulta. Alan, double promotion you got, child?
No.
By mistake. Advait, have you copied?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. See you next class.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.